Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to season two of Conversations in Pop Culture, where I have with me comic writer David Doub from Shonoff Studios. So, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, I am very excited, and we technically were supposed to do this, and I sort of got really busy last April. So, we're actually finally getting to do it almost a year out, 11 months to 12 months out from when technically we were supposed to do it. And I know that you got a lot going on, and you're getting out a bunch of rewards for Dust vs. Cheerleaders, the
hmm
Cheerleader Karate School, and you're also launching Little Deaths that just
Yeah,
came out. I think yesterday or possibly today. I'm not even
it,
sure at this point.
it was Monday, but yeah, it's moving pretty quick. So
So obviously it came out in the last 3 days, and so I think before we get into both of those things, the best place to start is what is Shonoff Studios and how did that all come about, and what do you produce with your comics and everything involving that? For those who haven't heard of
sure,
it
yeah.
yet.
That was something I decided at the Show Enough Studios. Is two good friends of mine, Terry Parr and Halo Tunes, his wife, and I've been doing Dust Comics for a while. But we've always worked together so well, and we help each other out. And with all the craziness with COVID and just working with them more, I was all like, why don't why don't we just cut through this all and we make it more formal? Let's tie the knot, if you were. So I joined into them with Show Enough, and we've already been working so much together. So we're working together to make some of our own books and collaborative, and we already been doing that. Like with Terry has this great 80s action comic called Aerobicide, the Extreme Ninja Workout, and I've helped him write on that. So it was only natural to keep doing it. And one of the first ones we had coming out that I was working with Andrew Herman is Little Deaths, which is actually based on a real person named Julie de Abadine. My French is terrible, and she's an actual French character from the 17th century France, and she was just crazy, not crazy bad, but she did what she wanted. And I can give you an example of one of the things she actually did if you want me to get it. It's a quick story.
Well, we're going to get into it
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, you see, I'm getting into the spiel. I was like, blah, blah, blah.
Obviously this is a company that you joined inside the Nod, and obviously you brought a bunch of your work into it. And one of the things that you brought in, and I'm not as familiar with everything involving
Yeah,
Shonoff Studios, but one of the things that I think you sort of brought into it was Dusk and that entire work.
yeah.
And obviously, just to give the position of Dusk really quickly, we have a battered wife, Eve, and she's kind of trying to keep her marriage together. She gets kidnapped by sort of the underworld, possibly a vampire lord, sort of
hmm
becomes his servant, possibly his lover, and then she's experiencing all sorts of components of the underworld, and then she's dealing with a variety of stuff going on with that, and possibly the spark of freedom, and sort of seeing a whole different world. I don't want to say it's sadomasochistic, but
Yeah.
it's got a French vibe to it. It
hmm
definitely reminds me of certain things, and it's definitely got more of an international manga vibe to it as well to it. So, what is that all like? And I'm sure you're going to fill in the blanks of what I missed because I just gave a very shotgun approach to it.
Yeah, no, no. And there's a lot of it. There's, if I do all the just comics alone, there's like almost 500 pages of content because that was my first baby. So, you always love your first child. And it came out of, I grew up with the black and white boom and with the vampires and all that, dark, messy um, drama and all that. And I wanted to make something that I don't like, not good characters, but I like complicated and messy, broken characters. Because to me, that's more interesting. That's more real life. We all aren't just either good or evil. We're just all over the place trying to make our way. So in Dusk, you already have this woman that's in a bad place, and she's just dragged through it worse. And when she's pulled out of it by and I always called the other, the one vampire Ash, I call him not empathetic. He's just not an evil dick. some people are evil and they just want to mess with you, and you're like, well, that serves no purpose. And he's more of like, I will do bad things to accomplish my goals. Like if I have to kill you to do it, that's fine, but I'm not going to torture you and all that. That is a waste of my time and effort. So he saves her and all that, but she has this kind of Stockholm syndrome, or where she's like, oh, you're my savior. It's like, no, I just thought there was no point in having you kept as a captive. So, go. And she's like, no, no, there's something between us. It's like, you're an adult. You can make your call, but that's messed up. So it's just all, and they don't say it that plainly. It's all just, people that are really unhealthy that should be getting therapy, which when you throw in vampires and werewolves and magic, there's no therapist for that. So it's just a big mess.
Yeah, and it definitely dives into that, and also it's definitely got sort of a West meets East type vibe to it. And what I equate it to, and I don't know if you're a big anime fan, it definitely reminds me of a show called Black Butler, which definitely has that vibe to it as well, where
Mm-hmm.
there's definitely evil in this book, but
Mm-hmm.
also no character is a saint, no character is purely evil per
Yeah.
se, but everybody's got something going on, and well, we start to unravel all of this stuff in this book. And so what is that like to even get to write something like this, because it is dark, but it's also very revealing, and you get to play with a lot of human emotions. And even though vampires, I don't know if vampires are technically in the human class,
Yeah.
but I think we all know what I mean when I'm saying what I'm saying here is that you get a lot of emotions to play off
Yeah.
of, and you get
Yeah.
to sort of dive into some deep shit, for lack of a better word.
And I like that you brought up, like Black Butler and all that, because I skew a little bit older on anime. So, like, I grew up on stuff like Vampire Hunter D, to where you did have, levels of darkness. And like D's an evil guy, not an evil guy, but he does the right thing more out of pragmatism than, because it feels good. And, I was younger when I first started writing it. And it's funny because friends would point out, it's like, no, I could see you, you're working through a lot of thoughts and emotions in your head onto the page. I'm like, really? Because, and I've learned to be more cognizant of that now so I can harness it to better use. But with Dusk, I was just all like, you know, feeling and thinking all this stuff, and it was just coming flowing out. And I didn't, I wasn't cognizant that it was, somewhat of a not, I wouldn't say therapeutic, but it was definitely me getting stuff out, which in later works, it becomes even more of a conscious effort to be all like, okay, I've felt or I've dealt with this, and now we're gonna throw it up on the page.
And I personally love things that dive into this, and I think it also reveals a lot about people, and it also, resonates with people a lot more. I also think that in the last 5 years, and I love Superman, I love Batman, but I think people are
Hmm.
getting relatively sick of superheroes. I think that nothing against DC or Marvel, but I think
Hmm.
people are wanting more. And I also think people are wanting more social commentary and more looks at life. And also, I think people aren't always wanting the happy ending or
Yeah,
a happy story, and they just want a real story. They want something that says, "Oh man, I'm invested in this." And obviously, Volume 3, we go deeper into this, where now werewolves are into it, and we start learning more about Ash, and we
yeah,
start learning more about all these characters, and we start becoming much more invested in it. And so, obviously, given that you've written a lot of it, and you sort of have a clearer idea of doing it, because obviously the first time you take pen to paper, it's not the greatest work that comes out for the most part.
yeah. Hmm.
It's not the cleanest, but now it's starting to become a lot cleaner, which means that it's getting a lot more messed up.
Yeah.
So
You
what is
become
that
more
like for
comfortable.
you to really get into that and start really getting a clearer idea and getting it even more pinpointed with all these emotions? Because that's where it's going.
Yeah, no, and it's funny you say that because I've learned to use it more, like I was saying, more precisely now. Like I did a one shot that I hope to be putting in an anthology soon, which dealt with in high school I was a nerd and all of that, and I got bullied a lot, and it was funny because like a few years ago, I was thinking back to back then. I was like, I was afraid and angry every day, and it's funny to look back and be like, I can't imagine what that's like now to be, be like that. And so I did a story where it's cognitively, it's a horror story, and all these bad things are happening to the bullies and all that, but I'm more aware of it, and I'm not just being like, I'm getting back at them like some twisted voodoo doll or something. But I'm more cognizant of it, and more recently I've done another short dealing with the whole COVID and people not wanting to wear masks. And again, I've learned to, it's been more therapeutic to where I can hone that and be like, okay, this is how I feel, and this is how I can construct it. And it's tricky because I didn't want to make it just, a vanity thing to where I'm just, it's just me yelling at people for 20 pages. I actually have to lose, or not lose, but I have to bring in both sides and make a whole rounded story, because I'm still a storyteller. I'm not just sitting here going, well, this is wrong and I'm going to tell you why for for the rest of the pages.
Yeah, and I think that's something that, as writers, we learn how to tell stories. We also learn how to take what, happened to us as individuals and harness that and then put that into something that isn't just a lecture, because nobody wants to be lectured to in a comic book. People want to sort of be in that character and be presented and have emotions and situations that relate to them. And so obviously, even with, obviously COVID, everybody's having a whole different perspective and ball game on COVID and what
Yeah.
they're experiencing with it. So COVID's a little bit, might be harder to pinpoint. We were speaking about, my parents, and not to embarrass them, but they have a very different reaction than somebody who's 30,
Yeah.
in the middle of COVID.
Hmm.
And I think that's a safe assumption. I think everybody can relate to that everybody's parents, and I'm 28. So obviously a
Hmm.
28-year-old and a 6-year-old are going to have very different reactions to COVID. And even, I was a nerd in high school, so I know exactly what it's like to be bullied. I know
Hmm.
exactly what it's like to be, I was never afraid in my high school,
Yeah.
but I know what it's like to be bullied and be targeted. And so I think it is very cool when we capture that empathetic component of it. And even with Dusk, we have a situation where we have a battered wife,
Hmm.
essentially. So doing that, I mean, that's a real empathetic position because it sort of captures what she's going through and how she develops I can't speak,
Yeah.
but we all know what
It's
I mean.
okay. Yeah.
Stockholm syndrome. There we go. So obviously, even just that empathy level, I think, really is a nice touch with a lot of this stuff. And also talking about Dust, and then we're going to get into the Kickstarter and
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
deaths and
Sorry.
everything.
I just, because there's a theme in my work to where, and unfortunately in modern times, I think we all come from some sort of trauma. I mean, I hope some people don't, but a lot of us suffer some through trauma, and it almost seems like how do we live after that trauma, and how do we live our best lives, even though we've been damaged a little bit. We're damaged goods, but we're still whole people, but we're we're all little hobbled. And how do we function with that?
Yeah, I think that's something that everybody. I don't know if everybody knows who Jerry Springer is. He had a show on GSN, which is Game Channel Network or whatever they called themselves at the time, and it's called Baggage. And the concept is that everybody's got baggage,
Hmm.
and so I think that's something that your work presents in a lot of ways. That everybody's got some type of baggage. But one of the cool things that actually happened at Dusk that I haven't really seen on the indie scene. And the closest thing I've seen to it is connecting covers with two comics and two different Kickstarters. Is that you actually have to do a one-shot crossover with
Yeah.
somebody, and that's Dusk versus Cheerleader Zombies and Karate.
Uh, yeah. That was sorry, cheerleader karate school. That he's a local guy, and he started it as he wanted to do as a web series, and that didn't go as well as he'd like. I mean, I liked the first pilot, but he's an artiste in that, and he did not like how it went, and he's trying to do it in the comics. So I was like, well, let's team up, and I've done that before with Aerobicide. We did a Dusk with the Aerobicide thing where we played up more, the 80s vampire vibe, and they were all on Sunset Strip in California, and we were playing those jokes. So yeah, doing crossovers is fun, and growing up with superhero comics, you were used to that. So I'm like, well, why don't us indie guys do that more?
Let's talk about that, because before we continue talking about this entire crossover, why don't indie people do it? Because to me, it seems like, if you got 4 issues, you're taking a break from between your first arc and your second arc, and somebody else is in that position too, that you should just have a fun time doing a crossover and give your audience a story that maybe isn't necessarily canon, or maybe it is, or maybe it's just a side story, and that you're having a lot of fun with it, and then you're bringing both your audiences together, and that people want to read this. If you're like, oh man, I like this story, and I like this story, or never heard of this story, but man, I've heard of this writer, and I really like what this comic's doing. So it seems like a no-brainer from a business standpoint, from a writing standpoint, and even just adding collectively to the library, and even going further off of that. Eventually, when you put everything into a trade, this is just a good piece of bonus content for both trades in many ways when all this stuff sort of comes together. So I don't get why it's not done. Because to me, and maybe you could provide more insight, because I think we should encourage more people to do it.
Well, I will say I have seen more of the I've seen more crossover covers as a way to promote, and I know that's done more because that is honestly easier. And I would say, from my understanding of making comics, is production wise, that is still, that's a lot of, it's an extra production. It's a whole nother issue you have to do, and you're doing it with other people. So you have more cooks in the kitchen, you have more, hands in it and all that. So, and who covers what and costs, pays what. And I think it's just logistically, it's doable. It's just, it's not as easy as all like, oh, we have a hole in the production slot. It's almost something you'd have to, plan as its own thing outside of everything else. Because from my experience, it becomes its own creature, and I'd like to see more of it, and I'm always down for that. But yeah, I think the production side of things slows it down a tad.
No, I mean, I get that complete argument, but I always view it from the business side, where
Sure, yeah.
that's just how I view it, where I find that there's way more upside. And also, I'm the type of person that I'm always looking for the next big thing that's different. And so anytime somebody does something different, it always intrigues me. And so that's how I view it. But I've also never produced a comic. I've never written a comic. I've done art on a comic. I've backed Kickstarters, and that's as far as I go. I'm not saying I'm not going to get into it, but obviously I'm speaking very much from the outside versus from the inside.
And
so I'm the
that's
first
good to
person.
know that there is interest for it, because if there's demand and we're not tapping into that, that is something, that's, from a business standpoint, that's leaving money on the table. It's like, well, there's an interest in this, crossovers.
I mean, I think I'm run of the mill. I think I'm pretty down the middle, but I might also be the different person because I'm the podcaster as well. And so I don't know if I'm the best person to take this all from, but I think, as I stated, I'm pretty straightforward down the middle, having said all this. And so I think other people would be interested in stuff like this, especially with two cool covers and comics and things of that nature. So that's what I view it. And also, Dust and the karate cheerleading crossover, I thought it was just a cool concept, because we got two comics that are sort of going in their own directions, and we have a vampire supernatural world, and then we got cheerleaders who are fighting sort of supernatural stuff, and then we're also in Texas, and we just got one of those crazy stories that, when I read this and I read the entire thing and doing my homework, I'm like, man, this is grindhouse. This is perfect grindhouse 80s vibe. And how can we possibly fail here with a crossover like this? And legitimately, I know so many people who could have crossovers where the two ideas would mash up. And I'm like, how can you fail? how can you legitimately fail just based on the concept alone? So what was this entire experience like writing it and also really getting it? Because these do mash up very well.
Yeah, like I said, I was familiar with his stuff. I actually got to help on him filming one of the scenes in the pilot episode. That was fun. I got to be the boom mic operator. So there was a little hiccups because I didn't know exactly what to do, but I picked on pretty quick because it's a lot of doing this, but you got to keep it up. And so I was familiar with it, and I knew it was that supernatural, and he was trying to go for a more serious vibe too, and all of that, while having it fun, but a good mix. So, and I had done the crossover with Terry before with Aerobicide, which was definitely more humorous because of Aerobicide. Um, and I knew he wanted to go into comics, so I was like, well, this would be a great way to segue into it. And I I fleshed out a plot for him, and he said, "Cool." I did a script. He was cool with that. He did. I did rough dialogue for his characters, and he totally fleshed that out because he knew their voices better than I did. And we both contributed to the production of it, and we got it out. So it's just we had a good, working relationship. It took a while longer, but that was some besides behind the scenes hiccups of certain, delays with art and all that. But we were, happy with how it went, and like I said, it was fun, and I hope this discussion, we all, we'll have more people going. Yeah, let's do more crossovers. I know there's how is it? God, I can't remember the Don Walker has a Kickstarter right now. I'm trying to remember what it is, but Dreadlock the Barbarian, and it's not a crossover, but there's a Harlan Buck free sword, and he is he has a side story that is promotional to promote it, so it's not a crossover, but they're using both fantasy based stories. But I do like your idea that maybe we should all try to do more crossover stuff. I remember, oh God, years ago there was a big push to do this like mega crossover of all indie characters, and I think that thing took like a decade to get done because because they did it big, and so you're dealing with 20, 30 different creators and characters and all this, and you're just like that was a huge undertaking. I think it finally came out, but that was too big. I think you hit on something, a simple, two book crossover, two different characters sort of thing. That I'd be curious to see if more people would be interested in that.
So I even think doing like a three
Hmm.
book crossover with three books would be perfect in this
Yeah.
circumstance because it's not small enough, but it's also big enough, and then also the audiences across the board are going to be much larger, and so
Oh yeah,
that
definitely.
seems the most logical to work in threes. And then I would even take it a step further, and I would take the game plan where I would have crossover one, two, and three, and then I would
Hmm.
take what happens in those crossovers and have a bunch of other people, and then start mashing everything back up, and then build it out to get that big crossover. Because I would like to see an entire indie universe, more or less, across the board with like 30 creators essentially, all be playing in some type of similar universe, or even sort of, I don't know what like DC has the Black Label. Like I would
Yeah.
love to see every indie character playing in the Black Label, for instance. But that's just
Hmm.
me. I'm one of those
Yeah.
guys
Yeah.
where I love universes and I love the idea of having that. But I think that has to be built out very, very slowly, and also
Yeah.
has to be built out with the right people. And I think it would actually do wonders for the entire indie community because anthologies to me are good and you
Hmm.
get a lot of cool stuff. And connecting anthologies are cool. Travis Gibb just did Cthulhu Invades Oz, and that's a
Hmm.
connecting anthology. But at the same time, you know, it doesn't really get me interested in wanting to check out certain people's work. And then there are a few other people that I've checked out of that, but like
Yeah.
it doesn't sort of sell me on everybody's work in that book
Mhm.
in a weird way where it's like I don't view it the same way where it's if you have book A and book B and I'm only interested in book A, but I see that you're part of crossover, I'm more
Mhm.
likely now to back book A and B
Yeah,
and just
yeah.
cross over and be introduced to book B because I'm missing certain things that are pertaining to it. So that's just how I feel about
Yeah,
cross.
no, yeah, it builds recognition in your brain, and also that's why Marvel and DC work so well. That continuity is connective tissue where you want to continue it. And I think you hit the nail on the head. Is it has to be started small or slowly, because everyone I've seen whoever did it who's like, oh, let's do a shared universe thing, they always do it as a shared universe right out of the gate. Let's do this big thing. And it's like, no, 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 no. The Rome, you can't do it all at once. You got to slowly build it. And that's why for right now, I officially think, 2 or 3 character crossovers would be great. And if it could build to something like you said, that would be amazing. But that would be definitely farther down the line sort of thing.
Yeah, no, and I also think that also the other side of it is that I also think from a business side, because everybody now when they get 4 issues or 5 issues or 6 issues, they put it into a trade paperback, and now
Hmm.
you're going to need content for your trade paperback, and then
Yeah.
that's just a gigantic bigger advertisement. And then I'm also thinking about if you're building out a series that has 7 trade paperbacks of content wise, and then you have 7 crossovers, and now, you're building that out where now instead of creating a new trade paperback, they're at the end of every single book. And that's another reason to pick up the trade paperback. And there's a variety of other stuff from the business side because
Oh,
that's
yeah.
more my background is that I'm just looking for, hey, what can I throw into a trade paperback that
Hmm.
makes this book more valuable
Yeah,
and
yeah.
makes it more purchasable and makes it, because there's only 2 points. There's 3 things that you have to be. You either have to be the cheapest, the most expensive, or the most valuable. And well, this
Yeah.
solves the value issue completely. So that's just
Hmm.
my take on it. But
Sure.
again, never ran a Kickstarter, haven't done one yet. Not saying I won't. I have an idea in the works, but
Oh,
right
that's
now
cool.
my plate is full. So
Yeah, yeah.
having said all that, though, I know that you're getting out a bunch of rewards on Kickstarter at the moment
Hmm.
involving either this project or Dust 3. I'm not exactly sure which one, but obviously I know that I think that stuff started getting out like a week or 2 weeks ago, I think, if I'm correct. Or was it a month ago? Because I might be wrong with dates here.
On which ones do you mean? The current Kickstarter or?
So I think on the cheerleader book, rewards started going out
Oh,
like a
yeah,
week
yeah.
ago.
No, we got most of everyone is out. What got us delayed was the sign books, and that was partially because I have to sign it. B.J. Lewis, the other writer, has to sign it, and we're in Texas, so COVID's a lot worse. So I have to sign them. I have to get them to BJ. BJ has to sign them, and then we got to get them to another guy who's I'm gonna pay extra to just put extra comic books he has on hand. He's a comic book dealer, so we're gonna ship them out through there. And when we were gonna do that all, then we had the big blizzard storm hit and all of that. So no, most everyone got all of their stuff. Everyone got all of their special covers, all the prints, all of that went out. It was the signed ones that were slowed down, and I should have rethought about that because I'm good at making comics, but fulfillment's still a new animal for me. So that's I feel bad about it, but luckily this time with Little Duff's, Andrew is handling more of the fulfillment side. So, but I've learned a lot. But yeah, that's where we are with that.
And so obviously, I mean, just delays happen with Kickstarter. It's not
Hmm.
a massive delay like a 15-month delay. It's more like a 3-week delay or a month delay. And I think people on Kickstarter are very forgiving if you let
Yeah,
them
yeah,
know what's going on.
yeah. As
And
long
they
as you
also
communicate, I notice they're very chill.
and people get angry when there's no communication. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that people get really pissed, including myself. So I've been pissed off at 2 people on Kickstarter when there was zero communication. So I wanted to make sure that we address that so that if anybody's listening and you get your book and it was getting signed, it's on its way to you. Because obviously things happen in Texas, and while sometimes things get delayed by a month or two,
Yeah.
but you're going to get your book. So I do want to clarify that and make sure everybody's fully aware of that. And now, having said all that, let's talk about Little Deaths. There's
Sure,
a lot
sure.
of stuff going on with this, and it's a very interesting project to say the least. I'm going to get this name wrong too. Your French and my French are not good. So
Yeah,
Julie the Albigneri, or yeah,
yeah.
clearly I'm not even gonna. I'm gonna just spell it. It's D apostrophe Aubigny. I'm not even gonna attempt because I'm horrific at French.
Yeah.
Um, I took American Sign Language partially because
Oh,
it's silent in college. So that's my language of choice, and I don't think it would be a very good interview if we started speaking in that nature. Um,
well, one of us would be able to do that, so I would be all like, but kudos for you for learning sign language for that. Down here in Texas, we didn't have as many language choices in high school and all of that. So, but yeah, she was a real historical character. She was also known as Madame de Maupin or Mademoiselle de Maupin. Yeah, I say it with an accent. That's how I always got through French. Is I said it with a thick accent. It's like you're not saying it; you're just saying it with an accent. It's like, mais oui, I am speaking French. Um,
so where did this idea come from? Because clearly we have Dusk, and
mhm.
that is a pretty, I think safe to say an American comic.
Yeah,
This, while I still think it's an American comic, it's got a French spin to it.
yeah,
By nature, we're dealing with France. I mean, we're dealing with French things that happen. We're dealing with French characters. There's actual French in the book, And
yeah.
so, where did this idea come from? Because this just seems so out of an. And I'm gonna, make a stereotypical statement here, but this does not seem like it would come out of Texas. No offense,
Yeah,
like
yeah. No, no. And before I get into her specifically, I grew up with heavy metal, the magazine. I grew up with heavy metal too, but and all those European comics, Mobius, of course, and I can't pronounce a lot of the names. So I grew up with a lot of that aesthetic. So when I read it was a meme when I heard about her, where it was a meme where they explained about how this is the story I was going to tell earlier about how she had she had a girlfriend and her parents didn't approve, so the parents sent this girl to a monastery to be a nun, and Julia was like, "No, I will sneak into the monastery to be with her, but how do I get her out?" It's like, "Oh, I'll dig up a nun, put her in my girlfriend's bed, burn the monastery down to fake her death, and then we'll go run off." And then they only stayed together for a couple of months after that. And I was like, "This real?" And so, I have to be in the internet. I have to fact check things. And I looked it up and it's like, she did a lot more than that. And I was like, ooh. And then I started thinking of like Heavy Metal Magazine and um, Robert E. Howard of Conan fame. I loved his stuff, and I learned he had a character called Agnes. I can't remember, but she was the Sword Woman, and it was set around that same time period in France, and it didn't have as much magic. And then I also read about I can't pronounce that. It's all written down, but it was another book around that time that may have inspired Howard's character, and that one did have more magic and all that. So all these pieces came together of influences and facts and all. It was like, well, let's have some fun because you can't write serious all the time, or you can't write dark all the time because it just it
Yeah,
wears
so,
on you.
even to go off of this, because obviously I'm going to drop some of the story, and I'm not
Hmm.
trying to spoil anything here. Um, Basically, she was under the Sun King, and then she was supposedly in the story being trained, and her father was basically training the knights and the pages and the
Hmm.
castle. She's training with them, so she's being taught in song, dance, swordsmanship,
Hmm.
And then she sort of discovers some dark magic, and then she gets sent away and married off to get her
Yeah.
out, and also political reasons. She says, "Screw that," and
Hmm.
then she and her lover wind up just going around and putting on
Yeah.
performances, singing, dancing, and having a good old merry time drinking in France.
Yeah.
And then so on and so forth. Because she's a good swordsman with her lover, this woman comes to her and says, "Hey, my lover is being sort of, hey, his friends just got all killed, trying
Hmm.
to not getting me married off to a baron. Can you help us out?" And then, well, the story sort of goes from there, which is probably conceivable, and it's probably a mashup of like three characters, as I mentioned, a Joan d'Arc in there, and all that stuff. So, what was that like putting that all together? Because we got a fun story, and we just got like a badass story of
Hmm.
just
Well,
this
that
character coming in, being heroic, dealing with dark magic, and also saving people to some degree, and also, not to get too romantic, but the idea of true
yeah.
love and making sure that somebody isn't marrying somebody for that, which is a little nice
Yeah. Yeah.
stuff. And we just
Yeah.
get a fun story out of this entire thing, but we also get a taste of what France looks like and all that cool stuff that's going on. So obviously, a lot of fun stuff, and that's sort of the basics of the story.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. No. And the funny thing is the start of it is you basically reiterated what her real history was. Her dad was really he was a secretary who was in charge of training the pages, so she learned how to do the sword fighting. But also, he was a horrible drunkard and gambler, so he didn't have a son, so he would take her along and such. And eventually, she was married off for sinister reasons. We haven't delved into that yet because it's a heavier subject and I haven't got enough research that confirms my suspicions historically of what happened. But then she did. There was a sword trainer, and he was going to be arrested for killing a man in a duel, which duels were illegal. So they decided just to run off, and they actually did. And this is all true. They actually did earn their money as they made their way to the south of France by performing shows of song and dance and sword display. And so then I took like the Robert E. Howard things of like Solomon Kane and um, and Conan and all that, and I added some of the fantastical elements, to give it a little bit fun twist. But I always tried to keep it into what I envisioned as her just a little bit, because she did a lot, like I said, with the story with the nuns and all that. She did a lot of crazy stuff on her own, so it wasn't that hard to just be all like, well, if we had a little bit, weirder stuff, like I think she'd be right at home.
Yeah, and I also think it's a nice touch too, because I like this concept where, the magic and the dark ritual stuff, it
Hmm.
doesn't detract, and also I don't want to say this was the medieval ages because I don't feel like this was medieval per se. Obviously, we're talking the Sun King, so
Yeah,
obviously we're not talking the Dark Ages, but
yeah,
we're also not necessarily out of the Dark Ages either, and there's still remnants of that. If you look at European history during
hmm,
the Sun King era. But we have a little bit more science involved, and we also have a little bit more of civilization as well
yeah,
during this time. But to just throw that magic stuff in there, it kind of adds a little bit saying, "Oh, we got some supernatural stuff going on, we got
hmm,
some weird stuff going on," but we also get to see her skills really come out
yeah,
and how she deals with magic and how she counters it and her
hmm,
swordsmanship, and how she was trained and also her sense of justice. And we get to
yeah,
see all these really positive traits. And we
hmm,
get to see them almost in a pure way, if that makes any sense, because it's tricky. Sometimes in comics, we don't see pure traits come out, and
yeah,
we don't see just basic role model traits that should be what everybody should be trying to do today. And I
hmm,
feel like this book sort of presents that. And
yeah,
so what is that like to do that? And also, remains somewhat accurate to history where obviously we didn't have magical orbs shooting out of people and their souls
yeah, yeah,
per se, but you could technically see that she might go in and sort of kill a baron for lack
yeah,
of a better word, or go in and free, a captive in a castle if she thought
Hmm.
that captive was innocent.
Yeah.
I think that is a pretty safe assumption
Hmm.
with who this woman was. Obviously, that entire nun story, because she wanted to be with her girl, she dug up a nun and then put her
Yeah.
in that monastery. I mean, come on,
Yeah.
let's be
Yeah.
realistic here. This is super interesting stuff, and this
Yeah.
is
And
just
I,
fascinating. Just that alone on a comic would be beyond fascinating because I know nothing
yeah.
about who this person is, and I'm
Hmm.
fascinated now about who this person is because of this book.
Yeah. No. And that was the beauty of it is on her own, she has such great stuff. And it's tricky to be true to her, but I learned, at least what I've read so far, is I think or at least the way I write her is she's about personal justice and personal freedom. She's very big about that. Now, like if you're like, oh, we got to, save this kingdom or fight, fight for the greater good. I don't think that would be her thing. But if like, oh, so and so is wrongly, justly imprisoned, like, well, then, I think she's more about the individual. She's an individualist, and that is something with French history, like with Joan of Arc. And if you look at a lot of French stories, that they are very big on that. I mean, shoot, their whole thing of the French Revolution and all that. They're very their history is rich with that stuff. So that's why I thought it'd be fun to kind of echo that in a kind of a playful way, considering she was every sense of a word was a scoundrel. Like I could see her and Han Solo, or those type of characters hanging out and having drinks. So like, hey, how you doing? You're like, well, I owe the hut, some money. It's like, I do too. Funny that, sort of thing.
Yeah, and I also like to see, I'm a big Zenoscope fan, and
Mm-hmm.
anybody who knows me very well knows that I love Zenoscope. And Zenoscope,
Mm-hmm.
for those who don't know, it's not just cheesecake books, even though they do a lot of that, and they
Yeah.
have a lot of provocative covers. They do have strong female characters, and it
Mm-hmm.
is nice to see strong female characters that are actually legitly like leading and doing things and
Yeah.
kicking ass, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite wrestlers is a woman named Demi Exo, and she's her entire tagline is just one of the boys.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how I view this character is that this, you know,
Yeah.
Genie is just one of the boys,
Mm-hmm.
and I say that not to, be provocative or politically incorrect. It might be, what do I know? But the idea here is that she can hang with anybody,
Yeah.
and it's nice to see just a strong female character do that. So what is that like to write? Because not saying that, you've written anything bad, and it's
Yeah.
cool to write guy characters, girl characters. There's nothing wrong with either or, but it's also nice when we get that in there and we get
No,
to see
I
character
like
kicking
it too
ass.
because it is more. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut in there.
Oh,
It
go
is
right ahead. Cut
more.
me off anytime you want. I'm totally cool with it.
um, don't do that. I'll just take over the show. No, she does fit in a modern context because she is very gender fluid and she is very her sexuality is very fluid too. No pun intended there. So she is a very modern person before her time to where she kind of whichever way she wanted sort of thing, wherever the move took her. And that was, I like that because it does feel modernly prevalent, but with a historical context. People are like, oh, this is a new thing, or like, no, people have been doing it all the time. It's just, they had to really, like this lady, she had to really, do things to, get her way, but like she knew what she wanted. And I like that sort of, precursor of this, modern day of people finding their identities and their gender and their sexuality. And here's this woman who's all like, I find it wherever I want, sort of, thing. So it's very, cool to be able to, share that and get to write that.
Well, I'm just hoping she doesn't break her lover's heart. That's all I'm hoping for. Because he is going to be the real victim, and men feel too. So having
Hmm.
said all that,
Yeah.
or she doesn't kill him, one or the other.
Oh
Anyhow,
yeah. Yeah.
we're going to table it right there as far as the story goes. But I
Sure.
also
Yeah.
know that you said something very interesting with the Kickstarter. And I'm going to be quoting some of your own words here that you put up on the Kickstarter. And, one of the things that you said is obviously, going beyond the awesome entertainment that this book has, this comic and this project is meant to help out artists Andrew Herman and Paul Maltaland, or I'm sure you're going to correct the name on that.
I've never heard it spoke to me. I've only read it in text, so I don't know either.
So if Paul's listening, obviously I'm sorry that I probably got your name wrong. As COVID has and still is affecting artists and their ability to make money at cons. Obviously, for those who don't know, San Diego Comic Con's not happening. A lot of cons aren't happening. WonderCon's not happening. Emerald City didn't happen. From pretty much Emerald City from 3 weeks ago in March to today, cons have not happened for a full year. And then and then even cons going forward. And I hate to say this, very pessimistic. A lot of cons saying, hey, we're going ahead in August. And I'm like, I don't think you are. And I think come July, you're going to find out that you're not going ahead in August, or that what you think is going ahead is not going ahead. And I think I'm more right than wrong on that one. Obviously, San Diego, as I stated, isn't happening. So you sort of said, hey, we're building an awesome comic book, but this comic is also to give work to people. And so it's a very cool scenario where I think people are going to be very happy with this book, but you're explicitly saying, hey, we're creating work too in this circumstance. So what is that like for you? Because it's not charity, but it's also, I don't know what the word is, because it's not charity, but it's also not pure business. It's not pure capitalism. And I don't mean to say just to create that scenario, but it's a little bit of saying, hey, you got to go figure out how to just get this book in. If I only make $1,000 on it, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting how that shifts because like with Dust versus Cheerleader Karate School, I was going to launch right before the whole shutdown happened back in March. And I was like, whoa, this is not appropriate to launch a comic book right now. People are suffering. We're all having to do stuff, and we're having to, people are losing their jobs. But then the artist was like, well, I need funds and all, and this is hurting me, financially and all that. It's like, okay. And I quickly turned it around. Like, let's go ahead and do it. And it did really well. I was proud of how it did. Took a little bit longer, but things are interesting times. And me and Andrew were going to release this book anyways. That was the plan with the Dusk book, and with this book, we were going to do them anyway. So it's not like we did something just to make work. It's like we're doing the work, but we're getting it out there with the explicit realization that a lot of the revenue streams for artists from conventions and commissions and all that have dried up. So we're all like, okay, we're already going to do the book, but we're going to make sure to emphasize that it's going to the artist, it's going to the folks who need the income. Like, being a writer, I'm one of the smarter, or most writers, we have to have day jobs. So I'm not hurting in any way. So I have no problem in, putting that extra effort to help out, because we're getting the book out anyways, and it benefits Andrew and the other artists too. So, it's a win-win for everybody.
So to even talk about this, because I am a strong believer putting your money where your mouth is. And unfortunately, and I'm not going to go single out anybody who I'm still friends with, but some cosplayers are very, and I hate to target them, but they're the ones who are the most advocate about this, and there's a few of them, and they know who they are. And if they take offense to this, so be it. But they've said, hey guys, wear a mask, stay home, don't go to cons. Cons should not be operating. And I think that they're very much in a bubble. And I'm not saying don't wear a mask. I'm not saying don't get vaccinated. I'm not saying that cons shouldn't or shouldn't be operated. But you have to fully understand that legitly people are making a lot of money at cons that supports their bills, supports their houses, supports their mortgage, their rent, supports them economically, keeps the electricity on. And for telling somebody not to stay home from their job, especially when your entire position is on Patreon or OnlyFans or you're selling prints, I think it is such a big problem. And then furthermore, when also you're saying it and you're not supporting artists at the same time, and you're saying this, that's also a problem. So I think that, and look, I completely understand that cons maybe shouldn't have been operating, and maybe they still shouldn't be operating. But if that's the case, and you're saying that, then you need to put your money where your mouth is. And I feel like you explicitly saying this is a prime example of saying, hey, I'm putting my money where my mouth is because I recognize that, look, people don't have work. I'm not going to tell you the number, but I bought a commission about a year ago from a certain artist. And I don't want to say who it was, but it was a little bit pricey. I got it graded. It's a beautiful book. Everybody I show it to loves it. And that person was doing probably about 20 commissions. And well, I'll give a range. It was $200 to $400 for the commission. So at the low end, 20 times 200, it's a lot of money in 3 days, And so, and if that person's doing 25 commissions, I mean, I think 20 times 200 is what, $4,000, and you're doing 25 commissions every other week, and you're making a decent salary plus all the artwork you're doing on top of it. You're going to be doing just fine in society. My point is that to tell somebody that all of a sudden they just lost, I'm doing the math off of my head. Four times 25. Obviously, I'm really bad at math here. But is that 100,000? It's I think it's $100,000 to tell somebody that they lost $100,000. Takes a lot of balls to say it when you're not writing them a check for $100. So I commend you for that position, saying, hey, I'm not making up all that revenue stream, but I'm at least making up a piece of it. I'm at least the effort's there.
It's a tricky one to say, and I know some of it, and I recognize I can't check other people's privilege, but I know from my privilege, and the whole issue is obviously very complex. I do feel strongly that if we had done things better in the beginning, we could have been going back to, closer to normal now, and all of that, and I know there's a lot of frustration that people didn't do what was right, with the mask and not doing big events until we got to, better place with vaccines and all that. But I do know with my privilege, I was all like, let's shut it down. Let's shut it down. But then I realized, well, I can work from home. My job is supporting me and I can afford to do that. And not everyone can do that. But on the flip side, I saw some people doing shows that didn't need to be doing shows. And, so it's all like, and I know it's a tough call, and I can't figure it out for everybody. That's like with the horror story I did about masking and all. I can't protest and all, but I can tell a story. I can tell comics. That's how I will talk about the issue. I can't fix the problems with cons and all of that right now, but I can do a Kickstarter and all that. So I've learned to do what I can do and try to, uphold what I believe in all that. Like not to get too much into the COVID stuff, but I've been very stringent in quarantining and not doing anything frivolous or, going out and all that. Because like you said, it's put your money where your mouth is or practice with your preach. I don't know about the cosplayers and all that. I always give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I assume.
So I'm going to just clarify my point.
Sure, yeah.
That they weren't going to cons, but their business is completely on digital. It's on Patreon. So their business, and a lot of these people are making money, their income wasn't hurt because they don't make money at conventions. But because you don't make money at conventions and you're doing all right, because you could still do a photo shoot per se, or you have a bunch of stuff stockpiled, or you can do a bunch of stuff. That's cool. You have endorsement deals or something. That's cool, but not everybody's in that privileged position. Not everybody has that. And I think that's the issue, is that I think these people just, and I don't mean to sound preaching, but I don't think they realize, and I think the word privilege is great, that you're in a position that other people are not in. And then you want everybody to cooperate onto your position when legitly you're not helping the person who's not in your position, who's dependent on a certain job to show up because they do well at cons. And they no fault of their own, and to not recognize that, I think, is the problem. It's not even an issue of contributing, but to immediately say X and not realize the complexity of it because you're taking away somebody's livelihood, and to just flaunt it off. And what I think what this Kickstarter did, it didn't flaunt it off. I think it acknowledged the problem, said, hey, I'm not fixing every single little thing of this, but I'm at
Hmm.
least providing an opportunity for this. And when you back it, I'm showing you and explaining to you that you're generating work. And
Yeah,
I think a bunch of people know that to some degree, but it's subconscious, and I think it needs to be more conscious. And
yeah,
that's why
no,
I think your
and
case, I want
and
to
I agree
highlight
with
this.
that. I
I
just
very
wanted to.
much, yeah, I'm sorry, continue.
No,
I
no,
really
no, no. And I'm not trying to be argue about that, but I try to give people the benefit of the doubt, and I don't know the context, but I would just assume that they were worried about, because there are too many people that want to go to cons and not worry about the mask, and I can understand that. Maybe a lot of people, cosplayers are all like, oh, we got to tell people to be safe, and there it is exhausting, all these complexities and all that. So it I can see where that got overlooked, but it's good to have the conversation like we're doing now and all of that, and saying, hey, how do we work around it? And I know the arts have been really hit hard. I know live music has been hit hard, theater has been hit hard. The arts in general has been hit so hard, and we're all trying to find smart, creative ways around it. So,
and I think you found a way. And I think the fact that you even acknowledge it is just part of the solution. I really commend you because by you saying it, it makes me say, okay, this is a solution. Where again, and this is why, because I think you did something that I haven't seen on Kickstarter. You said, look, I'm a job creator in many
yeah.
ways. And I'm not. People are legitimately hurting here, and
Hmm.
these two artists need the help. And we're going to talk about a few other people who need the opportunity because, unfortunately, even the big two have had to make certain cuts and certain
Yeah.
things got slowed down. And so, even somebody, if they got a gig for $500, maybe that pays their electric bill for the next two
Hmm.
months, and they're going to be able to say, hey, I could survive for 2 more months. And so, all of a sudden, I think that's something that I really wanted to commend you on and congratulate you on. And I think that you should be praised for it versus saying, anything else, because this is what I think needs to happen in the indie community. And I think you're a prime example of that. And so this is one of the reasons why I actually, when I was researching you, I wanted to speak to you because I think
Sure. Yeah.
this is something awesome that you did. And I think you deserve a hell of a lot more praise than just being on my show for it.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate that. And it comes from it comes from a managing way of a way to manage frustration and all that too, that you can't control there's a saying where you can't control the world, but you can control how you respond to it. And that's, like I was saying, with the stories and with this Kickstarter, these are things I can do that are in my power. So I try to do stuff I can control. But on the flip side, some people just want to do escapism and fun stuff and just get away, and that's cool too. Everyone has a right to express themselves their own way. But I'm glad you appreciate that I'm trying to be more cognizant of everything that's going on, and
Just
because a
accept the
lot is going on. What?
just accept the compliment and the
Okay.
praise.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take it. I am awesome. You heard it. I'm awesome. Thank you.
And so obviously that's something that I really want to talk about. And again, I throw praise your way because I think it's something that is amazing and is a step in the right direction. And obviously, there's a lot of cool stuff. So obviously, even going beyond that, and that's a reason in of itself to back this project. The
Hmm.
story is great. I've read the story and I've enjoyed it. And there's also a lot of cool stuff that's actually in this.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I like in this, we're going to talk about it in 1 second here, but I do want to talk about the rewards. So there's
Yeah,
a
sure.
bunch of digital stuff that you can get, and it's pretty dirt cheap, to be honest, which I love. I love cheap. I love getting digital stuff for almost a sampler. So
Hmm.
there's a whole indie digital packet of a bunch of comics. There's also digital little deaths. And so, what is it like for you to do digital? And there's been a big debate on digital, and I think digital won the fight here, where a bunch of people were not prioritizing digital, and I think COVID has pushed digital heavy. And I love digital. I just got a Comixology subscription, and I
Hmm.
love it. I go through like 6 graphic novels a week, and legitimately
Wow.
for $6, oh
Hmm.
my god, I'm going through like the old Batman stuff from like legitimately like 20 years ago. Whew, it's good stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I digress right there. But I consume a lot of graphic novels and I consume a lot of digital stuff. And so,
Yeah.
what is that like for you? And how do you feel about digital? Because I love digital.
I've learned to embrace it more. I've learned to use the right technology because I and technology is cheaper now because I used to have only like a computer and a phone, and neither of those are the idealist way to read. But I found I got myself a decent tablet, and I don't have a Comixology subscription, but I got a lot of comics on there, and it's a lot easier to read stuff. So, and I've embraced it more. I've done some of the humble bundle packages, like they do some humanoid. That company who has a lot of those European comics. I love those bundles. And also, though, I embraced it more with online because during the shutdown and all that, me and other comic folks were all like, well, what can we do to provide content during this time? It's like, well, we all have comics. And so we were just handing out comics left and right. And I know I was piling up some from other folks. And I'm like, here, just get them from the Google Drive. Just, we were just handing out free comics left and right digitally and all that. So it shows that, people just want content, and if it's good and fun, and luckily technology is better now with the tablets, I think that it works a lot better. So I don't see why not. I totally stole the digital pack from another Kickstarter, but I'm also stole another one to where each week you get a special digital comic because they didn't want theirs sold, but they wanted them to be given away as a benefit. So, and that's fair. So those are, and I decided to just highlight one each week because I stole that idea from others, but they do a big batch. I was like, no, let's flip the script a little and see if we just focus on one each week and say, oh, let's try out this person, this person.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who do it in a bunch of different ways. Where they might do
Hmm.
like some people have like 30 of them
Hmm.
that in the theory, at least from my understanding, is saying, hey, if you back my Kickstarter, you get 5 of these from all these 5 people who want it as promotion, and you're getting the first issue for free. And if you
Hmm.
like it, you might go and find them online and then get the rest of it. And then it sort of is cross promotion, and then usually everybody who sort of signs up and agrees with it winds up everybody trades like their first issues, and I
Hmm.
love the concept. I do think though that like getting 5 books every single week is a little much, to be honest. I have a hard time figuring out certain indie books to buy, and if you throw
Yeah.
5 at me, I'm gonna get overwhelmed. I really am. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna read one out of the 5, and so it sort of defeats the purpose as far as a consumer goes. But I do think that is great, and I also love the fact that digital's dirt cheap, because
Hmm.
it doesn't cost you to print it. Once
Yeah.
the book is built, it doesn't cost you to distribute it or print it. I'm working on a digital product myself, and I purposely am doing it digitally because it is the cheapest distribution method. It is an email away, and I love it. And so that's the digital stuff. And obviously, you could get a bunch of digital package stuff, and then you get the just little deaths if you're interested. It's relatively affordable. So obviously, if you're on a budget, digital is a really good way to go.
Yeah.
But let's say that you do want a physical reward. So obviously, you get cover A.
Hmm.
And so let's talk about cover A. And then hopefully, I think this is cover A right here.
Nope, that's a page in the book, but close.
This is cover A.
That is cover A. Yes.
Okay, we got cover A. I got confused. It's all
Okay.
right. It's late at night for me. This is cover A. So, how did this all come about? And obviously, I want people to see it. So, this is what cover A is going to look like. You can get it signed, and your lovely signature can be on it. And
Well,
so, we're going to talk
Andrews
about
is
cover B in a minute. I
okay.
promise.
Sure, sure. Um, and cover B's more Andrew's baby too, but no, this is all Andrew's. He has a great sense of graphic design and all of that, and well, he went to school for it. And and he's done a lot of cover work and comic work. So yeah, no, I can't take credit for this. This is all Andrew's.
And then this is cover B. I think I can get away with it for a few seconds here.
Yeah.
It's risque.
Yes.
I don't
The
think
risque cover.
I don't think it's completely like not. I mean, it's a bit not safe for work, but
Yeah.
I like this cover too a lot. So I think this cover is sort of fun, and obviously it's got that sort of risque, sort of a little bit more provocative vibe to it. But I still think it's pretty safe to share on Instagram to some degree.
Yeah, Instagram shown worse. So
because I like this one too. So obviously there's a choice of cover A, cover B, and it's super cool both of these covers. And
or
obviously,
there's the combo pack if you want both.
so obviously you can get one, you can get the other, you can get both, and obviously I just want to show what people can get so that when people
Sure.
see this, they're like, oh, now I know what I can pick up. And then going even further off of that, let's say that you just want the digital copy and you can get a print. And now I'm not too sure which is which, and so you're going to correct me on who's who, but I think this is Thomas Tenley.
Yes, it is.
So,
and all these,
hell, right?
Yeah, all these prints are in the. They're chapter pages in the book. So at the beginning of each story, these images will come up. I think, and this is actually, this is from Thomas Tilney. He's most famous for his, I would say, most famous for his stuff on Marvel's Force work. That's what Avengers West.
I would disagree. I would disagree.
Okay.
ACDC, but
Okay.
We could pleasantly disagree. So for those who don't know, Thomas Tenley has done pencils for Marvel. He's done pencils for DC. He's done cover work, I think, for Marvel and DC. And then he's done some album work for AC/DC. And that's how people know him. And now he's sort of, I guess, making his rounds on the indies. And he's he's becoming a big indie cover artist. And so he's great at what he does. And obviously, if he's working on your project, it is an awesome thing to have there. And obviously this is his work. This is right out of his playbook. And so what is that like for you? Because it is a big deal to have him on there. And obviously I know you like it from Marvel per se.
Yeah.
I love him from AC/DC. And I think it's awesome what he's done. He's done stuff for Bilal with Chuck Pino. And obviously that cover that he did is great. And so there's a lot of cool stuff going on.
And he did stuff for Creepshow too, I think. Wasn't it Creepshow? Or he's done a lot of stuff. Yeah, no, I just remembered, we'll agree to disagree on that. But no, that was kind of the idea, is we wanted to have a production value that was of high quality. So we got artists of various levels in their careers, but that could bring it and all of that. Because one of the other prints is by a guy who's, I think he's only 18, and this is like his first real published work and all.
The one?
No, that is Spikes.
So that's another one that's also involved. So
that's Sandy. I'm sorry, that's Sandy. Yeah, Sandy Jarrell, and he's done a lot of comic book work as well, and all of that. So we, and I was just saying that we knew his production value would be as high quality as well.
And the reason why I show this stuff is because obviously I want people to know that there's stuff out there. And then what we were saying, because I rudely cut you off about also having the 18 person in there, because that's cool too. And I don't know if I have that image, but obviously even having two and then having a third person who is sort of brand new and giving them an opportunity is awesome as well. And I appreciate when people do that too. And I also like to see new artists and see people rise up, and also see people sort of tied together with, other artists, and also giving them a leg up, because that's how people get better. That's how people get recognized.
Yeah.
And you're also, Silicon Valley has the concept of incubators, where there are companies that provide a place possibly for shares or advisory shares, where they sort of pay a small company's bills for a while or give them a massively reduced rate to help that tech company grow. and then this is kind of what you're doing to some degree, and not
Yeah,
not at that level, but you're giving
of
somebody a
course.
leg up.
No, and Andrew found him, but I totally agreed with him that he had promise, and Andrew did help him out. But this is someone who, has some good skill, and it's good to see him go and all of that. And that's always one of the fun parts of creating is working with talent and seeing them become bigger than you. Sometimes it's good to be like, oh, I was there when they started out. It's a fun feeling to see them, you know, grow and only improve.
And then obviously, I do want to show this again because this is a page from the book.
Yeah.
It's a very cool page. That's obviously the girl is Jeannie and the guy is her lover. So this I want to make that statement. I think this is one of also the
Yeah,
end.
that's one of that's the back cover that we made a print. Yeah, and that's by Mike. How do I say his name? Jason. Jason. I'm gonna mess it up. But yeah, no, he's the new kid on the block. But as you can see, we're very happy with he came out with.
Yeah, no, I like this cover too, or this print, I should say, because I think it's pretty cool.
Hmm.
And I like the skull on it, and obviously throwing that out there. And so obviously you could get that in a print. You could get the Thomas Tenley, you get the
Hmm.
Sandy print, and then there's a bunch of other rewards too that I want to talk about as well because there's a bunch of cool stuff. So obviously you get both covers with all three prints, and that's a combo deal that you can get. You can
Hmm.
buy a page to advertise or throw something in there that you want. And so
Hmm.
obviously that's not even that expensive. I think it's what, $100.
Yeah.
And so obviously, and when I say this, that's with approval. It
Yeah.
has
Yeah.
to be reasonable. But I'm going to throw out some stuff that stop me at any point that I'm wrong. If you have a comic book that you want to advertise, I'm pretty sure that's going to be pretty fair game. A podcast, if you have a business or you have an internet show, that type of stuff usually will work in something like
Yeah. Yeah.
this. Or if you have like a pizza place, or hey, maybe you just want to throw up your art, like a cool pinup, and you say,
Yeah. Yeah.
hey, can I just do a really cool pinup in your book dealing with maybe my take on a character in your
Yeah.
book? I'm sure that's open for interpretation too. And then have something in there if you just want to share art or something of that nature. Or maybe you have a Comic Con that's sort of coming back, or that might come back in 2022 that you want to throw into this.
Hmm.
Something like that would typically be fair game. I think is usually what it is, but obviously it has to get prior approval and all that
Yeah.
stuff and everything in
Well, you
between.
got to be sure because there's always somebody who has to ruin it for the rest of us. But yeah, no, we're fairly open on that.
And so I'm just throwing that idea out there, and also saying, hey, if anybody's got ideas or you're looking to advertise, it's a pretty low bar. I will say this: a bunch of wrestling promotions to sponsor wrestlers is anywhere from $75 to $100. So $100 page in a book is not bad as far as sponsorships and things of that nature. So keep that in mind. I'm just going to throw
Hmm.
that out there that it's pretty reasonable, all things considering. And I'm in the Northeast, and obviously you're in Texas, so it's super cool. And also, I'm sure that if somebody has a question of the demographics, I'm pretty sure you can answer them on that. Just
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
figure all that out. So I'm throwing that out there because people might have questions. And also, please, if you're going to go take that position, don't ruin for the rest of us. I really hope you don't, because I might advertise eventually in one of these comics, and if this goes south and you ruin for the rest of us, well, that option is probably not going to be available the next round. So please don't go do that. Um, and then the final thing also is an original sketch. You can
Yeah.
also get an original sketch, which is also cool because art is fun, and
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
kind of get some cool art stuff going on, that's something to also realize that can be out there. So obviously that's out there too. So there's a bunch of rewards from everything from getting some digitally all the way to a bunch of stuff and advertising a business. So obviously super cool stuff going on with this, a lot to choose from. And having said all that, where are you currently at the Kickstarter?
We are currently at, I want to say, we're like 80%, 85% funded. So we're hoping to do some of the stretch goals and such, which, oh yeah, and to mention some of the other things we did, we already unlocked one of our pledge goals, and we have another one coming up, is we made a Dungeons and Dragons non-player character sheet for Julie, um, that you can use for your game and all that, and it's you can get a free, everyone gets a free PDF of that, and if we get 100 pledges, we have a whole module with her in it as a character, and it's all set around the Phantom of the Opera, and kind of with the same Little Deaths universe, but also for and the reason I mentioned those two is because some of our stretch goals is we'll print those in the book if we meet those stretch goals.
I actually think that's great, and I think it's nice too because obviously a PDF, and I'm pretty sure the PDF will also be available. And but even having that stuff in the book is cool and it's
Yeah,
awesome. It's just a nice touch. And obviously, I'm not a Dungeons and Dragons player. I don't have any friends who want to play with me. It's terrible. It's their fault, not mine. I take no responsibility. If somebody would like to invite me to the Dungeons and Dragons game, I live in Connecticut. Please invite me. I will happily show up and I will bring a six pack. But anyhow, having said all that,
you can
and I
play
will,
online. There's a lot of great places to play online, but yeah. Anyways,
and if somebody would like to teach me before we play online, I will also greatly appreciate that, and I will send you a six pack. Anyhow, if you are legally of age, of course. Fingers crossed, and with my pinky up to be proper. Anyhow, having said all that as well, how many days are left on this? Because I do want to let people know time frame, and it is March 17th. So if you're listening to this tomorrow, calculate a day minus.
yeah, no, it will be. We got 25 days to go.
And also, even going further off of this, because obviously we've got some stretch goals and pledge goals that have been unlocked, but what else is in the works that you want to tell us about so that people know that when they back, hey, we got some cool stuff coming down the pike?
Yeah, we're working with someone to do a cosplay cover, so a live action Julie cover. We're working on that. We'll see how that goes, to be kind of unlocked. And we're also working with my studio mate out of Shownuff, Terry, to do an exclusive cover too. And so those are some other things. And the big stretch goal is Andrew's up for doing a whole nother story to add to the book, so everyone will get 12 more pages of story out of it. So they'll balloon from a 30-page book to like a 56-page book or something after all said and done.
So that's awesome, and I love it, and I'm excited for it. I'm excited for where this is going. Obviously, I'm gonna take a leap of faith here and say this thing is gonna be funded. It's just how much more it gets funded. So
Yeah,
if you're 80
thank you. I
percent
appreciate that.
in 3 days, I'm willing to take that bet. And I think it's a pretty safe bet. It's just that what else can be added onto this story?
Yeah,
How much further can we go? So I'm one of those people, and obviously there's all that stuff coming out, down, and everything in between. So I'm very excited for this thing, and I'm also very excited for the story. I'm very happy that very quickly you funded, or you didn't fund yet, but you got over the problem where if you're over 50% in your first week,
yeah,
it's usually a good step. And the fact that you're 80% is even better. And obviously, as I stated before, I think the story is awesome. I read the story. I think it's a great story. I think it's a fun story. I'm very excited for what happens next because I got a feeling this is only the first issue, and we didn't even talk about what's coming down the road. But this woman has a deep, rich history, and I mean a deep, rich history. So that's something that's fun about that. So obviously, there's probably more coming. And stop me if I'm wrong.
no. If this one does well, we already have stuff planned for issue 2 and all of that. So yeah, we'll go as long as people want us to.
And so I'm very excited for that as well, where there's just a lot of fun stuff going on with this. Obviously, the D&D stuff is always good. I hope you get a bunch of cool cosplay stuff in there because I think cosplay covers are always fun. Tyrone Jackson does cosplay covers from the Silverse. universe
Hmm.
and Sovereign universe, and he does a lot of cool cosplay stuff, and I think that's becoming bigger and bigger. So I definitely hope that happens. And so obviously, what I've been saying and what I'm going to encourage, and then I'm going to I'm actually going to say it in a second here, but I'm going to say it briefly here as well, is that the more you want with Kickstarters, that means you have to pledge more to unlock a bunch of stuff. So if you heard anything like, hey, you say, hey, I want a cosplay cover of this, you should pledge and you should encourage other people to pledge. And on that note, I'm going to give you an opportunity to promote yourself. Obviously, where can people find the Kickstarter? Where can people check out your Facebook page, Twitter, Instagram, any other social media stuff, website, showing off comics. Obviously, I want to send people, if there's Facebook pages for that, and Twitter pages for that too, and Instagram pages for that, and anything else you got going on right now relating to this comic or any other projects that are coming up.
Yeah, yeah. You can find us online if Facebook, we're Show Enough Studios. On Twitter, we're Show Enough Art. Instagram, sorry, I got to look that up real quick. It's past my bedtime. I'm so old. Is Show Enough Studio, and we got a lot of great stuff planned through the year. After this, in May, we're going to be doing a horror anthology. It's going to be more topical stuff. It's going to have like the first part of that bullying story I was talking about, the mass story, some other dark stuff. Then we're going to be doing some of Halo's stuff, which she does more fun kitchen witches, like one of her characters, the girl from the Ring. Um, it's like that, but coming out of a cup of ramen noodles sort of thing. So that's she's going to be a couple of things of that. We're doing another issue of Aerobicide, Terry's Baby, the Extreme Ninja Workout, where it's about a Korean American in the 80s, and she gets ninja powers, and she has to fight all these possessed bad guys in a very 80s shtick sort of way. It's a lot of fun. So we got a lot of stuff planned for this year. 2021 was a beating. I mean, 2020, we're not done with 2021 yet. 2020 was a beating, but 2021, we're coming back strong, and we got a lot of content. So just, keep an eye out for us.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to say this, and I've been saying it to everybody, and I'm hoping that everybody eventually gets sick of me saying it, and I hope they actually start doing it, is that you have to support indie. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to support indie creators. You have to support Kickstarters. You got to follow people on social media. And ideally, the best way how to support an indie creator is backing their Kickstarter. It's not charity because you're getting a book out of it, but
Yeah.
they can't build the book without you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And obviously, the more you pledge, the bigger reward you're getting and the further you're pushing that along. And
Oh
so I
yeah,
think,
just to point out something, because a lot of things, a lot of this is most of the book is made. I mean, there's little to be done besides actually printing. So if that's a concern for folks, like, no, we made it first, and now we're coming to do with it because we're trying to do it right and all of that. So it's like it's done, mostly done, and yeah, we just need everyone's help now.
so I'm gonna table my promotion because this is actually a really good point. So, what is that like for you? Because people do Kickstarters a bunch of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
I've known people who have used to do it the way you are doing it,
Mm-hmm.
where they got the entire thing done, and then now they just want to cover their printing costs. And then now some of those people, what they're doing is that they have half the book done, and then they go to Kickstarter, sort of finish it up, get
Yeah.
all the artwork done relatively quickly, and then get it off to the printing. And maybe it's a 6 weeks longer versus having 75 of it done or having all of it done and then going to printing. Because I think that it is interesting with all that stuff. So obviously, and also, if the book is already done and the art is done, or 95% of the art is done, it is less of a risk than if it's not. And so I
Yeah.
think that's something that, is also important to acknowledge, and even why you do it as well. Because it is different when the book is already done and now you're just saying, hey, I just need to print this baby right here and get it, print this bad boy, get it out the door. and that covers some other cool rewards with it and make sure it's just nice and tip top. And if something needs to be touched up, we have a little bit of room to do it.
Yeah, and I do it as a hybrid sort of. I mean, with Andrew, he wanted to finish it, so we did that, and with the others, um, it's kind of been hybrid because I understand that Kickstarters, unless you have certain audiences, you can't go, oh, I need 20 grand to make this book. It's like, who are you? Why do we need to give you 20 grand to make this book? So the hybrid thing is like, okay, well, I got some of the art and some of the stuff done, but I still need 3 grand to print it and pay this one artist, or, to pay the other half that he's owed. So I found that's a healthier way to do it because it keeps what you're asking lower, and it also keeps their risk lower because you've got a lot of it done, so it's easier to to follow through.
And I agree, and I think that hybrid, and I think that nobody should go to Kickstarter unless they have 40% of it done. I think if you go to Kickstarter with just a concept on a comic, unless you have consistently done it before and you have a good track record, I think that nobody should do that. People do it, and it's complicated, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But getting back to hold my support point is that, as I was saying, best way how to support indie comic creators is backing their projects, because the more you back something and the more you encourage others to back it, it gets funded, which means you get your book that you want to see. And then also you break those stretch goals, you break those pledge goals, you get cooler stuff. The more money that's put into a book and pledged into a book, it either goes back to paying the costs, gets the book printed, gets it printed faster or on better quality paper sometimes, as well as sometimes that money just gets kicked forward into the next issue. And that's a big thing that happens on Kickstarter. And might not be acknowledged, but I know for a fact, because everybody says it, that if you fund over and you have $500 left over, a lot of people just kick it over into issue 2, which means that then issue 2 doesn't have to raise as much money, or there's even more of a buffer, and then that gets kicked into issue 3, and so on and so forth to get the project done. So obviously that's one way how to do it. But if you're in a situation where money is tight, and that even though you got your stimulus check here, please make sure that you're okay, your spouse is okay, your partner's okay, your boyfriend, your girlfriend's okay. Make sure if you got kids, they're okay. Make sure that your mortgage, your rent, your electricity is on. Make sure you got money for the next month. Make sure your dog's all right. It's super important, to make sure you are financially stable before you go backing a Kickstarter or even backing any other project for that matter. And if that's the case where money is tight, your next best option is definitely to sign up for email lists. Definitely check out Facebook pages, like Facebook pages, engage on Facebook pages, share the Kickstarter around, like Twitter pages, check out websites, check out Instagrams, follow, engage on those platforms, because that makes a difference, especially if you're in a tight financial situation, because maybe you're in a tight financial situation, but you have a Twitter follower who can really, really help, out and actually can pledge. And if that's the case, they see it, oh, this is a great concept, and they become a pledger. So consider if money's tight, become a social media follower. If you got a few extra bucks, definitely throw it at it. I don't think you're going to be disappointed with this book. It's an awesome book. I read the story and I really enjoyed it. And if you can afford to do it and you have extra money, you should still be following on social media, because it is a big deal to do both. So on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Well, no, like you said, support indie. We're indie. We got a lot of great stuff coming this year, so keep an eye out for Show Enough Studios. We'll give you a whole variety of different stuff, from Kitchen Witches to Robicide to the horror anthology to Little Deaths. We'll have something that will, tickle everyone's fantasy. So do it now!